Okay, well, it was bizarre to do this first video today based upon what it was that had kept me awake half the night, and to wake up and find on the Storm channel the same things that I had been thinking overnight. Some of you will probably say either that I'm making this up, or that because you're cynical, or that that's impossible, but I'm going to tell you it was on my mind, and take it for what it's worth. So then I do the little video and get to the 8chan postings, and of course there's more of the same, and some of it follows the trend that we've had before, but some of it is new stuff saying, among other things, what do you do with the class action? So let me go through this in sequence, but let me also segue as we go through it to tell you what I've been thinking about for whatever it's worth. The first number 828 that Q does is basically rah, let's get with it and get after it, and they want you divided, they want you silenced, make noise, we are with you, make it rain. And I would go further than that. It is not just make it rain, but make it buzz, make it storm, make it swarm, make it impossible to ignore, make it so that they fear us, and that they fear trying, even attempting to get close, much less shutting it down. That they won't strike any of us because we all respond every time, and we make it painful for them. We put them in the news, and we make ourselves the center of discussion and make them the distraction instead of the other way around. So the next one has to do with Zebra, Bring the Thunder, Killbox A1A-23X, and then a light T blah 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 that I can't even figure. I have no idea what it means. Somebody probably has it and I haven't gotten to it, and frankly this thing, there's lots to chew on here. I mean, if you want to make jerky out of this, there's a 1,000-pound animal to work on. So Operation Zebra was a 1945 major mine clearance operation by the U.S. Navy off Sakashima Gunto in association with the invasion of Okinawa by the Allied forces. And so to say it not once but twice is to say we are doing all kinds of mine clearance in all kinds of settings. And I think those of us who appreciated the potential that all of this is ongoing and all of this is important and how this lines up, recognize that in order for this stuff to be taken down, in order for 250 years of corruption to be taken down, there are pitfalls and mines. I mean, this is like a giant video game with every kind of distraction and painful outcome possible if you don't disable it and disarm it as you go. So some of us get impatient, and I am among them who gets impatient to see this happen. But I mean, this is like the first level of a video game, and we're starting to go down through the various levels, and some of them have to be cleared, not in sequence, but out of sequence in order to make the process work. And God knows I don't know how all of that is happening, but let's I have to remind myself to be more patient about it, because if in fact this is going on, it's huge stuff and it's going to take a major undertaking. The Killbox 1A-23X is somebody on the Anon said, it's the First Amendment and 23 times violated. I don't know the exact number of people that have been bounced off of YouTube and or Twitter, but if it has to do with the First Amendment and that certainly makes sense. It would be a good message even if it wasn't the one that was intended. So the next one has to do with 830, which is, and follow this, what I say a class action lawsuit. In the 831 there's a comment, where we go one, we go all, misspellings matter, sentence formation matters, learn. Well, nobody would say, I'm sorry to say, or happy to say, what I say a class action lawsuit, unless you were just learning English. So note the syntax, and the syntax of that has to do with the class action lawsuit. And as I've pointed out in others, we may be by agreement precluded either as channel masters, channel posters, or as subscribers or as viewers on YouTube from doing a class action lawsuit, in the technical sense that, and I don't know that this has been changed, but what all these big companies were doing was precluding us from having class action suits by saying that we agreed to individually mediate or arbitrate our solutions, and that we will not be allowed to collectively go after them for a violation of the terms or the application of the terms of their agreement. I know there was some legislation proposed to undo that. I cannot tell you, I know up front, whether that happened or not, but the implication of it is that the technical application of a class action lawsuit may not be possible, at least not without doing that battle first. However, having said that, there's nothing to prevent us from having what amounts to a John Doe lawsuit, which applies to the whole class of people, all of whom are represented by John Doe. And in the case of the channels, if there are 5 or 10 or 20 that get bounced and they are named as co-plaintiffs or are added to with multiple plaintiffs into a collective lawsuit against a defendant, in effect it protects us all. And so rather than saying, well, gee, this is somebody else's channel, I don't have anything to do with it, we all participate in the channels that are at risk, and that blanket applies to all of us once the rulings come, because all it takes then is a note to hold them accountable for all of it, and or possibly attorney's fees. So there's a point in here, who controls the narrative, and I think the obvious answer is not us, and what we end up doing is working on the defensive. What I would say to this quickly is, what I've said to Trump all along is the comment, the best defense is a good offense. And I don't think, frankly, that the administration has done a very good job of that either. By saying, what I would say to them is, target these folks, go after them, put them on the defense, have the mainstream media be outraged if it needs to be, but to put people to where the narrative is that the people who are the dark folks are being attacked and are being made examples of, then we get off of this Russian narrative and the rest of this crap. I hate being the dummy that keeps getting punched, even if I am righteous in that process. I don't like it. So, who wrote the singular censorship algorithm and who deployed it, etc., rhetorical questions, but effectively the mainstream media folks, and that includes, I include in that Facebook and Google and Twitter and the rest of these guys. There are people that said, well, gee, this is Snowden or Eric Schmidt or whatever else that did it. Effectively, they employed it and or deployed it. I don't know whether Snowden had anything to do with it. The same embedded across multiple platforms, and one of the things that was noted by the Anons is that, there's this 4 a.m. story that is passed around to all these guys. This is your narrative. These are the quotes of the day. This is what we're going to do, what's going to be in the news, and you will all follow it. You will all sing to the same tune. Whereas at Snowden, who knows, why did Eric Schmidt leave Google? We've talked about this. It could either be that the December 21st executive order that would effectively have frozen Google's assets if Schmidt was involved may have had some impact, or it may be to be a free-floating player. It may be to be outside the noose. What is obvious is that Schmidt, and most of you know this, spent time in North Korea, and that is right here. Why is North Korea out of the news cycle? But North Korea was a part of the news cycle when Schmidt was there, and Bill Richardson, the former governor of New Mexico, they were all playing little games and claiming that they were there as humanitarians and there to try to free the American who was there. But we know that they were doing other stuff. There was a Jared Cohen, who is the CEO of Jigsaw, who was also part of Google Ideas, that was also in that entourage with Schmidt. And two of them co-authored a book called The New Digital Age, Reshaping the Future of People, Nations, and Business. Hey, pay attention. If that isn't the narrative, what is? And so this is all part of this same comment and has to do with changing this narrative, getting to a global narrative, and getting us all made subjugated to the process. So what events change the news cycle? We know lately that we've had the bogus banners, right? What I call bogus banners, which you may also call false flags, and it says define false flag. The false flag of it has to do with making it look like somebody, some enemy, is doing something when in fact it's not the enemy at all. It's your own folks, or it is a different set of folks, or it is a government involved that wants you to believe that it is either a terrorist organization or pirates or whatever else. And recognize also that a false flag does not necessarily mean that it's a hoax. So a hoax can be nobody died and everything was all play acted, or it's a false flag and people died, but it's still narrated, it's still scribed, it is still set up to change the narrative. And why didn't Las Vegas do it? And I think there are many reasons, some of which have to do with it being so exposed that it was vulnerable. Every time somebody from the mainstream media brought it up, it meant that they were vulnerable to be called out for their stupidity. And so 831 is misspellings matter, sentence formation matters, and I pointed out a couple of those. One of which is also, let me see if I missed that. Oh yes, on 830, the last line which precedes that is you have more than your no, Y-O-U, your no. So do we have more than we know as we possess it? Because your is a possessive pronoun, right? Good question. What do your know? So there you are. All right, so the next one is 832. A demonstration was made today out in front of the White House. You must know, and I need to tell you, I don't follow the news on a daily basis. I pick it up secondhand off the internet. I got off of the Dish and DirecTV and the cable and the rest of that almost 10 years ago, and decided that I was not going to be emotionally engaged in the tug-of-war of the fake news. So I get it anecdotally, and I get it as it relates to what's real and how the fake stuff is playing into the real stuff. So some of you will have a better link to that than I do. It showed that they can control the innocents, and we know that Antifa and Black Lives Matter, that liberals for certain causes, all the way from the water to the environment to the global warming and the rest of that, can be played with. I'm sorry to say, because some of those folks are my friends, but they still get tugged into the false narrative, the innocence of the narrative, because they believe in a cause, and that cause is the key to having access to their activity. So what you see is 2%. The war is real. These people are sick. Watch the news this week, and of course I have no idea what the news is going to be this week, but these people are sick. That one has to appreciate that while we see them as human and we see them as people, They don't see us that way at all. And the next comment is, reality is labeled as conspiracy. You are made to feel crazy. You are told to obey. You are sheep to them. And so let me tie the two together. We're sheep to them, and that what is incomprehensible to most of us, and is true for any unred pill person, that when you respond to something like 9/11 and you say, well, it was actually done as an inside job, and that natural reaction is, I can't believe that anybody would kill 3,000 people intentionally, number one. Number two, I can't believe that people would lie to us. I can't believe that people would conspire to lie to us. And I can't believe that my government, the guy, little Georgie W., that I would go have a beer with at the bar because he's such a cute little good old boy, I can't believe that those guys would do all of that. Well, they do it because they don't see us as human at all. We are just to be herded and disposed of as they see fit. So until you comprehend that there are two levels of people as they see it, and that they see the mass of us as subhuman, as not of their equal, then none of this makes any sense. Once you see it that way, it can all start to make sense. When somebody sees you as subhuman, then the way they treat you suddenly makes sense. And that's the critical fact, as I see it, for an awful lot of what goes on here, for the incomprehension, for the barrier between us and them that most people do not see. So the next one is, remember, we are winning. Do not trust what you read. Mind warfare. I'm skipping through this. You don't need me to read it to you. You can look it up, but that is as I see it. The next one has to do with the Bridge 1, Bridge 2, 187. The first bridge is gone. There is some implication here, or suggestion, that Bridge 2 is Snowden and the CIA. What does that mean? Does that mean that Bridge 1 is old, or that it's just been taken out? And again, the linkage of YouTube, Google, Facebook, Twitter, etc. And the next one is the Russian ICBM tech, and there is some postings on the internet of both Bill Clinton giving stuff to the Chinese, all kinds of stuff. Bill wiped out any U.S. strategic advantage by accepting millions of dollars from hostile governments and illegal contributions to give them, the Chinese, a 20-year head start when we gave them the supercomputers and the rest of that. But we also gave them all of Boeing's technology. If you remember, there was the passing and the allowing of Boeing to set up factories in China that were going to build everything that we built. So all of the high-tech stuff that we had developed internally that was supposed to be secure and classified, even in civil corporations, was suddenly just dumped. So how do the Chinese make jets and bombers and fighter planes? Well, guess what? They make them a lot better because Bill Clinton helped them. And then the second part of it, which has to do with the whole reset, and Hillary and the State Department, is that, for instance, 28 European and Russian companies participating in Skolkovo, 17 of them were Clinton Foundation contributors and or paid for Bill Clinton's speeches. So the whole military intelligence stuff, the reset, had nothing to do with us getting along with them. It had to do with Hillary making a fortune out of passing this on. And what I would point out to you is, many of us look at this and say, well, the Clintons sold us out for $150 million, or for speeches and fees and for other connections. But I'm going to tell you, that's only the tip of the iceberg. That is the payoff to the Clintons for doing what they're doing. But they didn't do it on their own. They did it at the benefit and at the behest of deeper sources, which have to do with the global connectivity of the entire world, and taking down any United States advantage, technological advantage, to keep itself intact, separate, and viable as a separate country and a separate corporation. So when we when the dark guys get paid off for handing out technology to China, Russia, and to others, Iran, Syria, Pakistan, North Korea, the shallow reason is the treasonous conduct of those folks, Obama and the Clintons and the rest, Podesta, and they get paid for it. But I'm going to suggest to you they get paid a lot more than just what was contributed from the forces that said, we need you to do this so that we can take the United States down. That sounds pretty paranoid, but I got to tell you, nothing else makes any sense when you get to it. So this 834 goes through why is Seth Rich back in the news? What would Russia tell the world? And part of the Russia tell the world is that some of the technology that they've gotten and that the collusive elements of it have to do with the whole Clinton folks. And if anything, some of us trust that Putin and Trump are in contact. I'm hoping that that's the case, and that the two of them together, along with a lot of others, are watching the dark players play us off against each other, and that they don't take it seriously. They watch it, they play with it, they give it credence, and they allow it to continue, at least for now, but they are watching it. So why is Seth Rich back in the news? You know, we've once again brought back the whole Clinton narrative and what was released. Why is Sessions acting weak? And this was a really fun one. I had somebody in one of the Anon channels that suggested that this goes back to the whole art of war and the fact that he looks like he is being played, or that he is doesn't get the message at all, doesn't understand what's going on, and that with an arrogant opponent appearing to be blissfully ignorant of it is a perfect ruse for gaining advantage. It also fits in, and I've always loved this, when Muhammad Ali played rope-a-dope against some of those guys. They got so exhausted punching at him that they couldn't pick their arms up, and then he could just flit in like a butterfly and take them out. And it was a relatively painless process for Muhammad. People made fun of the fact that he wasn't a very bright guy, but obviously he did exactly what he was supposed to do many, many times. So why is North Korea out of the news cycle? At question mark, at the pleasure of the POTUS. You know, there you are. Some of us believe that when President Trump traveled to Europe, or to Asia, excuse me, that he got the Chinese to pay attention, and correspondingly the North Koreans and guys like Bill Richardson and this dark boy that was working with Schmidt and the rest of these guys, this co-author, what Jared Cohen and the rest of these guys could have been neutralized. So we're figuring this out. You have more than your no. Again, your no. We're figuring that out. Boom, and boom, you know, everybody has an idea what that means. Shock buy, which is to say things are going to go down. There's also a connection, and you saw that picture, you can see that picture, linkage of how Q and Trump are linked and how it's linked with others. And finally there is, and you know, this is beyond me, Fiddler leads to Ghost Prime, class with one S, whistleblower traps. We've talked about that with Barlow and others, and censorship, and to get into it. So, all right, I'm not going to belabor it, because there are other folks that you will want to watch that will pick apart the many pieces I couldn't get, and there are other people that you know, some of you that have picked through this and have gotten these various pieces. I welcome you to post those for the benefit of the viewers. I welcome you to email me if I get some real hefty, meaty pieces. I'll toss them back out as a follow-up and share them with everybody. I invite you to take a look at the other channels. And once again, let me go back to, which I think is critical, let me go back to linking us all together and getting us united so that nobody gets picked off. There's not one of us that gets picked off. If the bee gets swatted, the hive comes and attacks and makes it painful. And that's what we need to do. We need to push the process together. I don't know what they call a tribe or a horde or a flock or a gaggle of frogs. I don't know what they call it, but there should be a term for it. And we should be able to be, much as the hive of bees, we should be able to swarm and make it impossible for them to defend against us. So thanks so much for watching. Give a thumbs up if you follow and like it. Subscribe if you will. Leave me feedback. And again, it's drphrog@seethingfrog.com. No spaces, no capitals, no underscores. Thanks so much.